Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a really sensitive topic, infidelity in relationships.
Yeah, it's complex. We've looked at insights from counselors, therapists, experts, and importantly, some very honest experiences shared online, maybe even by some of you listening.
Exactly. And our goal here isn't to make anyone paranoid, but, to help you understand the signs, the context, especially how things have
Uh,
changed.
We want to pull out the key information, give you a clearer picture of infidelity today, what it looks like, how it happens, and maybe some ways to think about it.
So let's start right there. What is infidelity now? Because it feels like the definition itself has kind of shifted, hasn't it?
It really has. I mean, historically, if you look way back, marriage was often more about practical things, social structures, maybe family alliances.
Not so much about deep emotional soulmates, perhaps.
Exactly. That intense focus on emotional intimacy as the core of a partnership is, relatively speaking, newer. So this whole idea of emotional infidelity being a major betrayal, that's kind of evolved along with our expectations.
That makes sense. We expect more emotional connection, so betraying that connection feels like a bigger deal.
Precisely. And then you throw in the digital age.
Oh, yeah. That changes everything, doesn't it?
It really does. Suddenly, there are countless ways to form connections, intense connections outside the primary relationship online, things that blur the lines of what feels okay.
Like, what kind of things are we talking about here? Is it just talking to someone else online?
Well, it can be. Think about stuff like constantly liking one specific person's posts, in a way that's clearly trying to get their attention, or sending flirty DMs, private messages you wouldn't want your partner to see.
Right, that hidden stuff. I've heard the term micro cheating too. Is that related?
It is. Micro-cheating covers those smaller behaviors. They aren't like a full-blown affair, physical or maybe even deeply emotional yet, but they definitely cross boundaries and can damage trust.
Okay, so give me some examples of micro cheating.
Things like maybe regularly checking the profile of someone you're attracted to, keeping online interactions secret, maybe downplaying a connection you have with someone else, even engaging publicly online in a way that feels overly flirtatious.
So it's like these little signals or actions that suggest your attention or interest is drifting, even if it hasn't gone all the way.
Exactly. And the key thing here really is that the line between harmless online interaction and something that feels like cheating, well, that line is different for every couple. It depends entirely on their specific boundaries and agreements.
Which really underlines how important it is to actually talk about those boundaries, doesn't it?
Absolutely crucial. You need to know what feels okay and what doesn't within your specific relationship.
Okay, so we have a better handle on what infidelity can encompass now, including these newer digital forms. Let's shift to the signs. What are some common behavioral changes people might notice?
Well, one of the big ones, and this comes up a lot, is increased secretiveness, especially around phones and computers.
How so? Like just wanting privacy.
It's usually a change in behavior. Maybe they suddenly have new passwords they don't share, or they angle their phone away when you walk by, or they're really vague about who they're texting or talking to. That sudden guarding of digital devices can definitely be a flag.
Okay, that makes sense. A shift from openness to secrecy. What else?
Unexplained unavailability is another one. Suddenly they're often unreachable. Maybe there are lots of meetings, or they're working late constantly, or their phone is always dead in certain situations.
And the excuses feel maybe a bit thin or just happen too often.
Exactly, especially if it's a noticeable change from their usual communication patterns, maybe during evenings, weekends, or when they travel. It's that break in the routine availability.
Right, pattern changes. Got it.
And then there's the classic, I suppose, a sudden, intense focus on appearance.
Ah, the new gym routine and wardrobe upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, wanting to look good is normal, of course. But if it's abrupt, maybe really intense, new clothes, new grooming habits, and it's combined with them being defensive or secretive about it, well, it to suggest they're trying to impress someone new. It's the whole picture.
The combination of factors. Okay. Secrecy, unreachability, sudden makeover. What about the emotional vibe in the relationship?
Oh, that's huge. A growing emotional disconnect. If your partner seems distant, avoids deeper conversations, sort of checks out emotionally, that's a really significant potential sign.
Like they're putting their emotional energy somewhere else.
That's often how it feels, yes. Like that core connection is fading or being withdrawn. It can leave the other partner feeling really alone.
That sounds incredibly difficult. And I imagine if someone is hiding something big, other smaller lies might start popping up too.
Definitely. It often becomes a web. Keeping the story straight gets complicated, So you might notice inconsistencies in what they say, really vague excuses, or they get super defensive if you ask simple, clarifying questions. That constant need to cover tracks can lead to patterns of dishonesty.
Okay, these are really helpful pointers from their experts.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned you also looked at real-life experiences, like those shared on Reddit. What kinds of things did people who've been through this actually notice?
It's fascinating how often that gut feeling comes up first. So many people said they just knew something was wrong, intuitively, before they had any real proof.
That intuition, huh? Trusting your gut.
Yeah. And another thing mentioned a lot was projection. The cheating partner starts accusing the innocent partner of cheating.
Wow, really? Turning it around on them.
It seems to be quite common, maybe a way to deflect their own guilt or sow confusion. Also, just sudden negative changes in personality becoming more critical, irritable, or different.
Anything else stand out from those personal stories?
Yes. The sudden interest in solo activities came up, like needing to go to the gym alone and being really resistant to the partner joining, sometimes paired, weirdly, with things like unexpected gifts, maybe guilt gifts.
That's an odd combination. More independence, but also sudden generosity.
Exactly. And the phone stuff really resonated with what experts say, but with more specific details. Hiding the screen, yes, but also taking the phone everywhere, like the bathroom,
Yeah.
using specific apps secretly. Angling the screen away became a recurring theme.
Those little physical tells with the phone.
Right. Also, people noticed that the friends of the cheating partner might start acting weird or distant towards them.
Oh, interesting. Like the friends know something.
Potentially, yeah. And paradoxically, some mentioned their partner initiating more sex, maybe to throw them off the scent.
Wow. Okay. That's counterintuitive.
It can be. And a really tough one someone shared. If your partner cheated with you to leave their last relationship, consider that they might be willing to cheat on you too, a potential pattern.
That's a sobering thought. Any other behaviors people reported?
Yeah. Losing interest in shared activities, less empathy, suddenly adopting new opinions or hobbies that seem to align with someone else they're spending time with. Communication becoming shorter, less engaged, more criticism of the partner.
It sounds like a whole constellation of changes, often subtle at first.
Exactly. And one person noted their partner, who used to talk about everyone, suddenly just stopped mentioning a specific coworker altogether. That sudden silence was telling.
Okay, so knowing these signs is one thing. Let's talk prevention. What can people actively do to kind of a fair proof, or at least strengthen, their relationship against infidelity?
A lot of it comes down to prioritizing the relationship consciously. A big piece of advice is don't entertain flirtation. Seriously, it seems harmless, but it can be that first step onto a slippery slope.
How so? What's the danger in just a little harmless flirting?
Well, it can lead to idealizing that new person. You see their best side, the exciting novelty, and it's easy to start comparing that fantasy to the, day-to-day reality of your long-term relationship, flaws and all. That comparison can be dangerous.
Okay, so nip potentially risky interactions in the bud. What else?
Avoid risky situations. The workplace, unfortunately, is a common starting point for affairs. Be mindful of things like the work-spouse dynamic, getting too close, too emotionally intimate with a colleague, especially if there's secrecy involved.
So clear boundaries at work are important.
Very. Maybe avoid being alone with someone you're attracted to, especially if alcohol is involved, as that can lower inhibitions. And definitely don't form alliances against your spouse with someone else.
Meaning, like, complaining about your partner to a sympathetic coworker.
Exactly. Confiding deep marital problems or personal vulnerabilities to someone outside the marriage, particularly someone you might be attracted to, builds an inappropriate kind of intimacy. Keep those conversations within the relationship, or perhaps with a therapist.
Makes sense. Keep the core issues inside the core relationship. What about strengthening the relationship itself?
That's fundamental. Make your spouse a real priority. Be present. Put the phone away when you're together. Communicate openly about your day, your feelings, even small attractions, if you handle it carefully and appropriately within your relationship dynamic. Keep learning about them.
Like, stay curious about your partner.
Yes. Ask about their dreams, their past, what they want for the future with you. That ongoing investment really strengthens the bond. And importantly, if you are facing issues or feeling tempted, seek professional help early. Don't wait until it's a crisis.
That's really practical advice. Okay, but what if, despite best efforts, you do start suspecting something? What's the best way to handle those suspicions? It sounds like jumping to accusations is not the way.
Definitely not the first step. First, take a breath and reflect. Why do you suspect something? Are there concrete behavioral changes you've observed, or is it more of a general feeling?
Distinguishing between evidence and anxiety? Kind of.
Sort of, yeah. It can be helpful to keep a private journal, just for yourself, noting specific instances, dates, times, behaviors that concern you. This helps clarify the pattern for yourself. But again, avoid confronting them without something more concrete if possible. It often just leads to denial and makes them more secretive.
Okay, so gather your thoughts, observe patterns, but hold off on the confrontation initially. What else should you keep in mind?
Crucially, don't blame yourself. If infidelity is happening, it's the choice of the person being unfaithful. It's about their actions, not your worth. Protect your self-esteem.
That's so important. It's easy to internalize it.
Very easy. Also, get clear on your boundaries. What is and isn't acceptable to you in a relationship? Knowing that helps you figure out how you want to proceed.
And professional help seems key here too.
Absolutely. A counselor or therapist can be invaluable. They can help you process your emotions, figure out how to communicate effectively if you choose to, and just navigate this incredibly stressful situation. They can help you think about next steps too, if suspicions are confirmed.
What if you do want to talk about it, but without a direct accusation?
Using I statements can be helpful. Focus on your feelings tied to specific behaviors, like, when you started locking your phone recently, I felt worried, rather than, are you cheating on me? It's less accusatory.
This sounds like a gentler approach.
It can be. And one final, really important point. Resist the urge to spy. Checking their phone, emails, tracking them. It might feel tempting, but it destroys trust further and can even have legal consequences. Focus on observable behavior and communication.
Okay, that's a lot of ground we've covered. As we wrap up this deep dive, what's the main thing you hope listeners take away?
I think the key is that recognizing potential signs is about observing patterns of change in behavior, communication, secrecy. But, and this is crucial, don't jump to the worst conclusion based on one or two things. Context matters, and communication, however difficult, is usually necessary.
Right, and it's clear that infidelity today is just more complicated, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially with technology blurring those emotional lines.
It really is.
Yeah.
Which just highlights again how vital open communication and really clearly defined, mutually agreed upon boundaries are for building and maintaining trust.
Absolutely. That seems like the bedrock. Okay, so here's a final thought for everyone listening to chew on. In our world of constant connection, how do we find that right balance? The balance between meeting some personal privacy and expecting transparency in our closest relationships. And what role does real earned trust play in helping us navigate all that complexity?
A big question to think about.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.